What's up, Dragon Brood? Today is kind of a interesting day for me. I have a lot of people that ask for my commander list whenever I'm talking about my deck, because for those of you who don't know, I'm on the commander advisory group. And usually when people find that out, they assume I have all these commander decks, but realistically, I have one deck that I've had for the better part of 15, 16 years, a long while. And I just recently built a second and third deck over the last 2 years. So I don't have a whole pile of decks. I generally have one, and it's Rith the Awakener. And I usually just update that and keep putting stuff into it or changing cards out just as I feel the need or new stuff comes out or whatever. But for the first time, I actually had a friend load this deck list into Moxfield so I can share it here with you on my YouTube channel. So hopefully this is interesting to y'all. I will tell you this is done as a very casual deck, so there's going to be some card choices I'm sure some of you are not going to like or agree with, but that's okay. I'm putting this here as a way that I can share it with people. I will link the deck list down in the description so you have it. Also, if you would be so kind before we move forward, please remember to like, subscribe, share, all that wonderful stuff, because this is kind of like a chore to do, and it was kind of like a thing. So if y'all enjoy this, I do have another deck list I can share as well. But anyway, let's go in and talk about my Rith the Awakener commander leg. Okay, just so everybody knows, I chose Moxfield because it was the easiest to use for video content. At least it made sense to me. But hey, if y'all have preferences, y'all can let me know that as well. Also, if you'd like to support me in the channel, if you're going to get any protective gear, check out Ultra Pro. Shop.ultrapro.com/PowrDragn, and be sure to use promo code PowrDragn because that'll save you 5%. Okay, so diving into this Rith thing, the first thing I want to say is I'm going to try not to spend a lot of time on every card because I realize this could be an insanely long video with all the different choices. But first thing people see when they see Rith is like, oh, Rith's a dragon, it flies, it makes tokens, you must have a lot of things that care about creatures coming into play. No, actually, I think it started out that way in the very beginning, but over time, I just really liked Rith as a card, so occasionally, I'm usually just making the tokens with Rith when I want, like, extra blockers or something, more often than not. But, or after a sweeper or something, and I'm just slowly trying to rebuild, like, Rith can help out with that as well. But generally, Rith is just a big body, and the focus of this deck is generating mana, drawing a lot of cards, and playing big monsters. That's kind of the goal. Getting to play with big things I don't normally get to play with in the 60 card formats, and really just enjoying what we're doing here. Doesn't have to be about being over the top or whatever. That's just not what we're doing. So, diving into the deck list, and I'm going to try again to be fairly quick about this. Obviously, Rith is our commander. Alena, Kessig Trapper. This is one of the new things we added. I have several large creatures that are coming into play, so a lot of times this is going to be generating 4, 5, 6 mana from tapping it. It is 5 to get into play itself, but that's fine at first strike, so I don't mind that at all. And it's just a reasonable card. I don't ever plan on playing this as a partner, it's just in here because it makes mana. If I do replace something, this is one of the ones that's always on deck to be able to be replaced. Obviously, if we're playing big things, Apex Devastator is one of the best big things because you get Cascade, 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 literally 4 times. And since we have a ton of other big things that can come into play from this, it's actually super exciting. So I have cast this 3 times successfully in this deck, so I'm really enjoying that. Archangel of Thune. This is another one I like because we're focusing so much on playing big things that having some life gain is nice. Or on the games where I do have to get creative, I can make tokens with Rith, and then Archangel of Thune starts pumping those tokens. So I do appreciate that as well, how this moves along. Archon of Justice. This made the cut early on, and this was mostly because I wanted to play more creatures and less spells. So this actually allows me to have a removal spell, kind of a catch-all, most of the time. There's a few things that do exile stuff, but for the most part, this is just getting to kill or remove whatever problematic thing is that we have. Aurelia War Leader. This one's actually super fun. Aurelia is just really awesome, getting an extra attack step. It does have flying, vigilance, and haste, so the first turn you play it, you can usually connect and get some damage out of it. So yeah, just a cool card. It's fairly easy to cast in here, and I really do enjoy this one. Bellfire Liege. This card's just sweet. It pumps up all my other stuff that's white or red, but also gives us a little bit of life gain and a little bit of damage. So we like that. Unfortunately, damage can't target creatures. It is target player. However, it can be used in a political sense at the table if you're trying to knock somebody down to help somebody else get a lethal attack or whatever. I've had that happen a couple times with this. So that's actually pretty cool. Okay, moving on, we have Baneslayer Angel. This is just a fun card because I played it when it first came out in Standard years ago, really enjoyed it, and kind of just wanted it back in here. It's a big flyer, it's 5/5, it first strikes, it lifelinks. It's doing a lot of fun things, and occasionally the fact that it's protection from demon and dragons does actually matter in Commander. Beast Whisper. Whoop, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Beast Whisper. Again, we're trying to draw cards. This is one way to guarantee we can have cards in our hand. And I will say, we have some games where we draw too many cards because it has been something I've been looking at reducing. However, this just says anytime you cast a creature, you draw a card. The creature doesn't even have to come into play, which is super sweet. Carnage Tyrant. Can't be countered has only mattered a couple times in Commander games, but it is a 7/6, it's trample, and the fact that it's hexproof, your opponents can't really do anything to it. So if you have anything that's giving it bonuses or does other sweet stuff, it's awesome. Tip of the hat to Carnage Tyrant. And again, this is another one I played with in Standard that I really enjoyed, and I was able to carry it over to Commander. Eternal Witness, because it's a creature and it gets stuff back from the graveyard, and I don't have a ton of recursion. So sometimes when your big awesome thing gets dealt with, sometimes it's cool to bring back. Eternal Witness, just a good magic card. Gaddock Teague. This card probably gets me more hate than any other card I play with, but you know, it is what it is. It does serve a purpose though, right? There's a lot of times where it's like, hey, me and maybe one other person are playing the creature decks, so let's slow down the spells so we could do a little bit of a thing, right? And sometimes people look at this as being an upsetting card, unfortunately, but I get it, right? It can make it to where some things don't work. It does turn off a couple of our own things, not many, but a couple. So I get it. But oftentimes it doesn't live more than like 3 turns anyway, so it's more of a nuisance than an actual problematic card. All right, Garrick's Pack Leader. Also drawing a bunch of cards. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Now, a creature does have to hit the battlefield, so that is one thing, but it is a 4/4 anyway by itself, which is nice because you can fight with it, but generally is going to draw you a bunch of cards as well. The other cool part about this one is it's not when stuff's cast, so if we have stuff that just puts it into play, it will also trigger this and we get to draw a card. So there is a little bit of a difference there. Galanra, Caller of Wirewood. This does 2 things, actually. It's fairly cheap to cast, and it actually generates mana, so we can cast our bigger creatures, and lets us draw a card if the thing costs 6 or more. So that's actually really cool, because we have a ton of things that cost 6 plus, and this works really great for us, so we like that a lot. Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. This has been good, and it's a little bit slow, but it should be for what it does. But again, it's a first striker, it's a flyer, and it makes sure you take less damage and your opponent takes more damage. And we like that a whole heck of a lot. The other thing, too, is it does have a combo in the deck with another card, which we found out by accident. And when we get to that, I'll tell you the story on that one. Helana Kesset Granger, this is the other half of Alana. 3/4 reach for 4 mana. Whenever another creature is in the battlefield, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. This is another card where, you know, when I saw it, I was like, hey, this is great for this deck because, again, I'm trying to not play a ton of spells if I don't have to. I want to play more things that benefit creatures. This is a way to actually fight things or get rid of problematic creatures that are building up elsewhere, especially when you play a 6 or 7 power thing and you can just take something else out. So really like that a bunch. Hellkite Charger, because I felt like the deck did still need a way to just try to win, you know, if things go too long. And a 5/5 haste flyer, and you get a free attack step whenever you pay 7. Still, the card's been good for years, and it's still going to continue to be good. So, makes the cut as well. Inferno Titan, it's kind of a throwback card. 6 mana, 6/6, comes into play, deal 3 damage, split up however you want among however many targets. This is actually pretty cool. I like this one a lot. Again, I played with this one a bunch in Standard, and it was a big sizable body I wanted to play in this deck. So, yeah, made sense it was going to make the cut. Come on, Heart of Krosa. This is obviously one that I got recently that I added to the deck. 8 mana for a 5/5. The beginning of your upkeep, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample. And one of the reasons this was important is because, like I was saying, every once in a while when we make those tokens from Rith, this is a great card to go alongside it, right? We get Rith, Rith attacks, makes some number of tokens. Sometimes if it's in the middle stages of the game, that could be 10 tokens, and then you play Kamal, and then boom, you're able to attack with all these little 1/1s that are now 4/4s with trample. So this has ended a game or two by itself. So very, very cool. Karmic Guide, again, a way to recur things, because some of your big stuff is just a threat and gets dealt with very quickly. Kodama of the East Tree, this is another newer edition that I'm trying out. 6 mana, 6/6 has reach. Whenever another opponent enters the battlefield, or another permanent enters the battlefield, if it wasn't played, or let's get this right. There's a lot of words on here. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card with equal or lesser value mana costs from your hand onto the battlefield. This is big because when you have stuff that also lets you draw when creatures come into the battlefield, you're either going to have a combination sometimes of either running out of gas, so you wouldn't have anything to put into play with Kodama, so it's cool you have things that let you draw, or the situation of, how do you balance those draws, putting stuff into play, get the triggers or not. So when you have Kodama and something that's letting you draw cards when creatures enter, it increases the odds that we get to do this every turn. Really like this. It's a big body. And if you notice too, a lot of my creatures have reach, and that's good too because there are a lot of random flyers in the format, and having big bodies with reach can keep the opponents off you while you're trying to set up the rest of your board, which is pretty nice here. But there's a lot of times this Kodama with any one of the card drawing creatures has resulted in me having like 2 and 4 things like every turn. Like it actually can ramp up very quickly. Linvala, Keeper of Silence. This is one I've cut out of the deck multiple times and it's come back multiple times. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I like what it does because we don't have that many activated abilities. But at the same time, I kind of don't like some of the situations it's created because every once in a while, it will just turn off somebody's deck effectively. So I don't know how I feel about it. I'm on the fence. It's not busted in any way, and I'm not doing anything crazy with it, so it's usually able to be removed. But it is something I'm keeping an eye on for this list. Lyra Dawnbringer, basically another Baneslayer. I liked Baneslayer. I'm going to play this. I do actually have a fair amount of Angels, so there has been times the +1 has mattered, but usually it's just another big body that flies and first strikes with lifelink. We're playing Omnath, Locus of Rage, because getting 5/5s into play is pretty sweet. Yeah, that's about it, really. No real secret here. But whenever it dies or another elemental dies, you do get to deal 3 damage to target creature or player. There have been times where we've had, this plus 3 or 4 other elementals out, and then the opponents are in a bad spot because if they attack and stuff dies or whatever, they're risking death. So I do like having that on a creature to play a little bit of the political aspect. I'm pretty sure I had a game one time where even they attacked us and we were able to kill somebody else because they couldn't get through to them, but we needed them off the board. So kind of a weird situation, but sometimes it happens. All right, so Ruach Thar. This works well with Gisela that we were talking about earlier, that reduces your damage but doubles everybody else's damage. And especially when you're the one playing creatures and they're playing more spells or non-creatures, this actually is really, really insane. Another creature with reach, it does have vigilance, so you can attack with it and block with it. It is a 6/6 body, which we love. But yeah, Ruach Thar. Sometimes not fun, but I do think it does help bring the game to a close, which is pretty important. Now, I will admit, I don't often go get Gisela and Ruach Thar unless there's a situation where maybe somebody's at a ton of life and we're not going to have any real way to bring them their life total down or whatever, and they're playing mostly spells, then I'll go ahead and take a chance at it. But that's like the best situation, right? I don't really like doing it because I don't generally enjoy that type of magic. And there has been a time in the past where I've considered just leaving one in and taking one out. But so far, leaving them both in has been fine for most of the games I've played in. Sigarda, Host of Herons, another angel, 5/5 flying hexproof. We don't get to sacrifice things, or at least the opponent can't make us sacrifice things. Like that a lot. Actually has come in handy before, so I do like this ability. But yeah, just generally a good card. Not a lot to say about it. Soul of the Harvest. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Same thing. Basically, just play a creature, get a card. Nothing too fancy, just another big 6/6 body. However, this one has trample, and we get to draw cards. Sun Titan, this one's pretty sweet. We do have a few things we could return with Sun Titan, so I like that part of it. Big 6/6 vigilance. Nothing too special there. Trostani, I also like in this deck because one, Trostani can combo with Rith, sort of. Right, I have had turns where I've been pretty low, attack with Rith, make like 10 tokens, and now we're back at a reasonable life total with blockers. Right, so we like that. We do have enough big bodies that, a lot of times you get to play a creature and gain 5 or 6 life. So that's actually pretty big too. I like what's going on with that. And every once in a while, we have a token that we can populate, but usually not for a lot. But, every little bit counts. Wiltleaf Liege. This is another one that kind of has gone forgotten over time. I think I've only ever gotten to use the discard clause on this one time. So I don't think that's ever really going to be a thing. But it is a 4/4 body. It pumps all our other creatures. Green creatures +1, white creatures +1. Of course, if they're both colors, they get +2/+2. So it's just a really good body and pumps our other creatures. So we're in on it. We really like what it's doing. Zakama. What's funny is I actually didn't have Zakama in here for a long time. Zakama only recently ended up in the deck sometime in the last 3-4 months. And what's funny is I played a game recently on stream, which I think is going to go up with Kingdoms TV soon, if that episode's not up yet by the time this goes live. And this actually led to me winning the game, odd as it is. Like, it was not one of those ones where, like, the only time I've actually resolved it, it actually helped us win the game. So for now, Zakama has earned its keep to stay into the deck. Looking at other cards here, other options. We're entering our sorceries now. We have Austere Command. Now, again, I tried to say, like, I don't want to play a ton of spells, but you do have to have some. And this one I like because it gives me the flexibility, right? I can destroy artifacts or enchantments, and I can keep my creatures, or I can get rid of small creatures that may be bothering us and leave my 2 or 3 big ones on the field. So lots of good stuff going on there. Crackle with Power actually only recently got into the deck just before Zakama did, I think, in whatever version that was. And this is a situation where I haven't even resolved this yet. So I don't know how good it is, but I think it was good as a catch-all late game option, especially since we can generate a lot of mana. So maybe one day it'll do something cool. I think I've only even drawn it twice so far, so I haven't had much opportunity. Green Sun Zenith, obviously just a good tutor. I mean, not much else to say about that. Hull Breach, again, just something to destroy artifacts and enchantments. Almost always it feels like I'm able to get 2 things with this, so I like that. Overwhelming Stampede. This is another one, like, good and bad. Like, it has been a winner for me more than once, and I feel some kind of way about that. Like, you do need to have winners, but there has been at least once or twice where this has happened, where I played it and I won, and it, even though it won, it felt anticlimactic. So I'm not sure how I feel about it, but there's also been some times where I've drawn it and it was my only way to win, right? So I played it. Hopefully it's enough. We get through. And sometimes it connects. Sometimes it gets countered. Sometimes they get rid of, like, your biggest creature before it resolves. So, there's some different things there that people can still work around it. So it's not an end-all be-all. But with our size of bodies that we have, being able to get +6 or something or whatever is actually pretty big, especially if we do get a Rith hit and have 6, 8, 10 tokens out, plus our regular creatures. We are playing 3 visits just to be able to go find lands. Tooth and Nail obviously lets us go find creatures, so we like that too. Stepping into the instance, we have an Eldamari's Call. Eldamari's Call, I should say, just so we can go tutor up whatever we need. 1 Fork, and honestly, believe it or not, Fork has actually been on the cusp of being cut like 5 times, I think. I may have actually even taken it out at one point and added it back in. I think the card's actually reasonable and decent, and sometimes it's cool whenever somebody's like, oh, I'm going to draw these cards, or I'm going to do this thing, and, I don't know, like Decree of Pain or something, and you're like, okay, cool, I want cards too. Like that sort of thing. So, I like what it's able to do. It can also counter a counter in a lot of cases. But sometimes you also get caught just holding it for 3 turns, 4 turns, right? Because nothing good comes up to counter, or people are just playing creatures. So, I don't know. I like the flexibility of it. Whether we keep it or not, I don't know, but it's been in here for enough versions that I'm not upset with it. Naya Charm, this one I like just for versatility. You know, being able to deal 3, get something back, or tap all your opponent's. Matter of fact, the most recent game I cast this, I actually got to tap all of the opponent's creatures because it allowed somebody else to attack them, so that way we could get them off the field, and then I was able to slowly work my way to the win. So I like it has some uses for sure. It's kind of a forgotten card mostly. I don't know anybody else really that plays with this, but I really like it. Path the Exile, Swords, Plowshares, those are just removal cards. Getting into the artifacts in this list, we got a Chroma's Memorial. This is actually very strong, and because we already are generating mana, we don't really care about the cost. It's mostly reasonable. I think I've only had one game where I wasn't able to cast this when it was in my hand. Now, it does get blown up fairly often, as well it should. It gives a ton of abilities, but still good enough that we're going to play it with our big bodies. Arcane Signet, Boros Signet, Coalition Relic, Darksteel Ingot. These are just mana makers, so I'm not stopping to discuss these too much. Felwar Stone, Fire Diamond, Lifecrafter's Bestiary. This is actually a card we play to be able to draw a lot of cards, you know, and get good quality cards. Right, getting to scry off the top, very good. Playing 1 Manalith again for mana. Moss Diamond. Oh, actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm probably going to be swapping this Manalith for the artifact that comes into play, and it makes any color of a land can produce, and it gains all the mana abilities. Mana Refractor, I think is what that is. I'm probably going to be putting that in this spot. I have one sitting on my desk, which I was looking for there a second ago. Moss Diamond, Selesnius, Signet, and Soul Ring. Enchantments. These are actually fun in this deck. So we have Asceticism, because it can keep your creatures from dying, keep them from being targeted. I like this card a lot. It seems like it keeps creeping up in value. It's up to like $12 now if you want one. But yeah, really kind of cool. I like this card a lot. Aura Shards, again, getting around playing a ton of spells. This lets me use all my creatures to do stuff, which I like. And the card is actually insanely good. Defense of the Heart, because we get to go get big creatures. So, of course, this was going to make the cut. No surprise. Garruk's Uprising. This is another way to draw cards. If creature enters the battlefield with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. And creatures we control have trample. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, or actually, when Garruk's enters the battlefield, if you control a creature 4 or greater, you also get a bonus card. But yeah, the trample sometimes has been good enough in this as well, just because it forces the opponent's hand if they know your stuff's going to come over and beat them about the head and neck. So, like this card in here too, Lurking Predators. Now, another story here is the main reason I know that Gisela and Rurik Thar work together is because I actually had a game where back-to-back flips were Rurik Thar and Gisela, and had the realization of, oh man, these might just end the game, because this was deep into the game. Board had already been swept, and these are the first 2 things we get back, and everybody's low life. I think even I was only at like 12, and I don't think anybody else was above like 15. So we were all pretty low, and Rurik Thar was basically going to kill one of the players if they cast a non-creature spell. So yeah, pretty crazy when that happens, but Lurking Predators, great commander card. Mirari's Wake, again, we want a lot of mana, so we can play multiple creatures, draw a bunch of cards, so this makes a lot of sense. Miri's Guile. Actually, this card's fine. It's obviously rare, kind of pricey, but it's like a backup Sylvan Library, which helps us out because we are trying to just get the best quality draws every turn. Sarkhan's Unsealing. This is a fun one for this deck. When this first got printed, what was it, like M20 or something? This was actually pretty fun for me because every time you play a creature effectively in this deck, I mean, there's only a few that don't trigger this. Every time you play something, you're getting to deal damage to something. And then if you have something that's 7 or more, which is only a handful of things in here, not many. But if you do play something 7 or more, you basically get to board wipe your opponent's stuff and hit them, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, this card, really like it in here. It ended up being both good and not as good as I expected, but I think that's perfect for what you want this card to be. And it's a little bit of a threat to draw some attention. And of course, Sylvan Library, because it's our other Miri's Guile, effectively. And then we're going to get into the lands that we're playing here. So nothing fancy. We're just going to hustle through these. Arid Mesa, Battlefield Forge, 1 Bountiful Promenade, Brushland, Clifftop Retreat, though Command Tower, Firelit Thicket, Flagstones of Trakir, 3 Forests, because I need some basics, I guess. 1 Gaia's Cradle. And by the way, I've owned this Cradle for like, I don't know, 20 years. Like, I've had some people be mad that I'm playing with Cradle and like, it's too expensive, this should be banned. Like, I don't know, man. All these cards in this deck, I literally, except for the ones that are newer, I've owned most of these for a very long time. So I'm just playing with what I have. Grove of the Burn Willows, Horizon Canopy, Kessig Wolf Run, Mosswort Bridge, especially when you get fatties on the cheap. Mosswort Bridge is so nice. 3 mountains, 1 Opal Palace, 4 plains, 1 plateau, 1 savanna, 1 smoldering crater, 1 spire garden, 1 stompy ground, a taiga, temple garden, treetop village, wasteland. And honestly, wasteland feels like a weird placement as a necessity to get rid of certain problematic lands, but I don't love the card. But I get it. It kind of fills a void that the deck needs. Windswept Heath, Wooded Bastion, and Wooded Foothills. So bringing everything up to what we have at the end, people always ask about mana count or whatever. This does have 36 lands in it. But yeah, overall, that is the deck. But yeah, there you go. That's my Rith the Awakener commander deck. It's probably not what anybody expected. Like I said, it's not anything super competitive. I have won a fair amount of games with it, so it's not like it can't win, but it's just doing big things with big creatures. That's kind of the whole goal there. So hopefully, finally, this is a thing y'all wanted to see, and maybe you learned something. Maybe I showed you some cards you didn't think about, or things that were underplayed. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this. If you like these types of videos, I may do another if you're curious. I do have my Sliver deck that we worked on a stream. I finally got that finalized with a couple of added new pieces, so I may cover that as well. But yeah, let me know how you feel about it. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all that wonderful stuff. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought, what you think. Is this dumb? Is it cool? I'll leave that up to you. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.